don't sweat the small stuff. Sometimes I might get over, and I think I talked about it earlier too, not stressing or having too much anxiety over things that are out of your control. There's a vision of how I want things done, and sometimes that doesn't always come to fruition, but having that patience and perseverance and positivity is key. And just take note of it and try to do better next time.
What would you create if you stopped waiting for permission and just built the thing you wish existed? Today, I'm sitting down with Nathan O'Brien, founder of the Lilac City Comic Con, a pop culture event that started from a simple idea. Why doesn't Spokane have its own Comic Con? From humble beginnings with just 18 vendors and 300 attendees to thousands filling the Spokane Convention Center, Nathan's story shows what happens when passion meets perseverance and how building community can be just as epic as any superhero story. Get ready to be motivated by Nathan O'Brien's story of building a dream from scratch, right here on Navigating Now.
Nathan, thank you so much for coming in your Indiana Jones shirt versus a Star Wars shirt. I appreciate that.
It's all Lucasfilm. It's all good.
I love it. Well, I thank you for being here. Seriously, you and I met last year at the Lilac City Comic Con, and you brought me in to do a speech, Dark Side for Life.
Mm-hmm.
But we originally met through my producer, Brennan, here. And we were just discussing that, and it's funny how things come full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And being back in the Spokane area, and you're actually from Seattle, where I moved back from, it's just this amazing connection. I really appreciate our friendship and the relationship that we've built. So thanks for being here.
Oh, likewise. Yeah, I really appreciate all your energy and your positivity and what you do for the community.
Well, I think that goes for both of us because I've always been a comic book fan, a toy fan, and being over in the Seattle area, we had the Emerald City Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. And to be able to bring my kids to that was awesome. And when I moved back to Spokane, I was like, I wonder if we even have anything like that. And ironically, you were the person who started that. So can you tell me about that? Like, what was it like to move from Whidbey Island and then to start? Like, what was the process of that?
That's so funny that you bring that up, because if the listeners could see my face, I had a huge smile on my face when you just mentioned that. That is almost exactly how I got started with doing a show myself.
Okay.
So moving from Seattle to Spokane, growing up going to Emerald City, going to minor cons for people that know those deep cuts at the Science Center, the single day shows, big and small. Going to comic book shops, a comic book stop down in University District. Those are all my hangs.
Okay.
And with my buddies. And so coming over here, I was like, okay, I got to find a comic book shop. I got to find the next con, and I got to establish my roots.
Sure.
So I find the comic book shops, no problem. Merlin's comic book shop, awesome. Check. Got those places down.
How old were you when you came over?
26.
Okay.
26, right. Just a young man at that point. And a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And when I got in touch with Craig Barnett, the owner of the comic book shop, I introduced myself and said, hey, this was late summer of 2006. And I was like, did I miss the local con here? I can't find anything online.
You don't know.
Because also
right.
2006, the internet wasn't, what it is today.
Yeah.
And and he starts laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny? What did I miss? And he goes, we haven't had a show in Spokane in like 13 years.
Really?
And so I'm like, that's crazy. How could, the second largest city in the state of Washington not have a show of its own?
And people forget that all the time. Being from Spokane, people were like, oh, is it small? I'm like, no, it's the second largest city in Washington State.
And I have to educate people on that
Sure.
constantly, people that have never been here before, when I'm talking to reps and agents and talent.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions I get, which I find hilarious, is, does Spokane have an airport? It's like, no, we're going to take you to Seattle, and then we're going to put you on a shuttle, and 5 hours later, you'll find your way here. It'll be like
we have the
magic.
tag International Airport on the end of Spokane, right? Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so, finding out there hadn't been a show in 13 years was really mind-blowing to me. And so I remember calling my buddy Steve, who's my con buddy, and I go to shows with for years. And I tell him this story, and I just came to this conclusion that I'm going to start my own show. And he goes, do you even know how to run a show? And I'm like, no, but I'm going to figure it out.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just started doing a lot of research and reaching out to other conventions that I used to go to. So some of the original founders of Emerald City Comic Con that have since sold the show to another company, but they were much more approachable back in the day when they were strictly local. And a couple of them that I still talk to this day gave me a lot of pointers and pointed me in the right direction and a lot of inspiration and ideas. And I just kind of took the ball and ran with it.
How difficult was that to actually ask for that kind of help? Were they open to it? And you had mentioned like back in the day they were a little more open, but like was that difficult? Like did people not want to give their secrets away, or were they very open to it because you were a kid asking for help?
Yeah, I mean, it did take, I think, a few weeks before they even got back to me initially.
Mm-hmm.
And I emailed some other shows that I had mentioned, some other big and small shows that I'd gone to, and I didn't get any response. And I was like, well, I'm trying, and I'm trying to read what I can online and, just try to take the idea of like organizing an event.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd done a lot of, catering and whatnot at the University of Washington when I worked there. And so looking at like large scale events and having a flow of traffic and, having a pre-sale list and having, RSVPs and who sits where and, the flow and everything like that, I was like, okay, I've done a lot of events for, tens of thousands of people. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to take that idea, but then try to fine tune it into, a convention.
So you kind of reverse engineered basically everything that you had enjoyed and what you liked, and you were picking and choosing what you really liked, but you didn't know if it was going to work.
That's
no
key.
clue.
That is key right there because I thought I knew what needed to happen. And don't get me wrong.
If I build it, people will come. All right.
Yeah, that was the hope. That was the hope. So the first year show was a single day event at Gonzaga University in Cataldo Hall. And it's a small venue for, wedding receptions, occasional meetings, whatnot, kind of overflow for the dining facility for, during the school year. And I'm like, well, it's going to work perfectly for me. I don't even know if it was maybe 10,000 square feet. I mean, it's not very big. And so we had probably 18 vendors and roughly about 300 people in attendance for a first year show. And, I didn't know what to expect at all, but I was happy with that.
Sure.
And immediately after that show, I sat down and I made a pros and cons list of what I knew I could do better.
Yeah.
But at the time going into the show, I had no idea that wasn't even on my radar.
Sure.
And so there was some pros. Sure, we pulled off the show, didn't burn the place down, had some people
was
show
pretty
up.
Happy about that.
Yeah,
Who showed up?
We had some people. Well,
okay.
We did have some guests, though.
Okay.
So, yeah, we had the late, great Margot Kidder, Lois Lane from the original Superman, Christopher Reeve franchise. She was our special guest.
That's awesome.
Artist Matthew Clark has done a lot of stuff for Marvel and DC over the years, came from Portland, and he's someone that I've met at other shows. And so that kind of laid the foundation of going forward with me networking and getting to meet other professional artists and people by going to other shows and kind of letting them know organically what I do rather than me going and trying to be a car salesman.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
So you have this idea, you tried it, it did successfully work. And so you learned from that experience and you made this pro and con list. What was that like? Were you married at the time to Rachel or
yes.
no? Okay.
Yes.
So what was it like to have your wife be your partner, and what were you, how did that conversation go? Did she believe in you? Was it like full force, or like what was that like?
Oh, she definitely supported me, and she still does to this day. She's seen it grow over the years. This year will be our 19th year, which is just mind blowing. It's been an absolute blur. But she came and was there and helped support. My buddy Steve came over from Seattle, and he stayed for the weekend and he helped support. So we were this trifecta to be there for each other and get everything done, and it worked out.
So that to have a support system is hard sometimes, and to actually have somebody, and especially your wife or your husband that does support you, it just relieves all that stress, right? And it's like that greatest cheerleader. So I'm glad that she was that for you, and you had a confidence team that you could reach out to. That's important. When you first did it, were you like, okay, this is what I really loved about the Comic-Con. How can I mimic that? But I just don't have the money for it. I don't have the budget for it. Like, did you have these great dreams and expectations, or you're just like, we're just going to try it and see what happens?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I've been to Emerald and all these other shows and San Diego Comic-Con, and I know, what it could be on a grand scale, but how do we then pare that down? And my motto unofficially has always been, how can I bring a slice of that pop culture world to Spokane? So we started modestly and small, and have always looked to grow year over year. So I know that we got to have an artist alley, we got to have the vendors, we got to try to have a guest. And it doesn't mean that I have to break the bank and bring in somebody from Australia or something like that. There are plenty of talented people, here in Washington and Northwest and Spokane and whatnot. And so that's where I think my next approach was, being also a freelance artist, was trying to get more established in the community. So beyond the comic book shops, and then finding local artists and local groups, and just making new friends.
Sure. Well, and you're having fun networking and creating a business model that is your brand and your image.
Yeah.
And it's like trying to reach out. And I love that you took a slice of it. You didn't take the whole thing on. You took these short wins and you learned from those wins. And every single year it has consistently grown.
Right.
So yes, everybody wants the San Diego Comic-Con right away. But it's like you had to start somewhere. And so it started with 300 people, and then year after year it started growing. And as that snowball effect started to happen, did you say to yourself, like, well, this is actually going to grow, and it's going to, I can monetize this in some way, right?
Yeah.
So what was that journey like?
Well, when I first started, it was, the idea was I'm going to do a show, and I did the show. So now what?
You have that t-shirt.
Yeah. What's next? And I remember that in year 2, because again, it was a small knit group of 3. Maybe we brought in, one other friend that I had made, whatnot, for that show. So it was still very tight. And so, I'd have to go and set up all the tables and chairs the night before. We couldn't afford, a service to come in, and a decorator to come do those things. They came with the rental, but I would have to do them. So I was physically going in there and setting everything up and making sure it was, fine tuned. So like one of the vendors came in and he was like, "Oh, I'm so excited, to be here for year 2." He's like, "What's your 5-year plan?" And I was like, interesting. I haven't got that far.
I'm working on 2.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm working on 2. But every year, like you had said, it continued to grow and continued to blossom. And I want to say it was maybe year 4, where we just kept going 300, 450, 750, and then we hit 1,000, and then it was like, whoa, 1,000, and that kind of blew my mind. And every year it just continued to snowball. So we went from a single day show to then I think year 8, we went to a 2-day show. And I think ultimately the goal was always to get to the convention center, because that really legitimizes the show. And people that we were able to bring in, artists, actors, etc., as guests, I think that was instinctually the first thing they would sometimes ask me. It was like, "Oh, was that the convention center? Is that what we're having it?" Well, we were having it at the community college for like 5 years.
Sure.
We went from Gonzaga to the community college, and I was able to establish a great partnership with them, with the local student groups that were there. So anime club, comic book club,
Love that. Yeah.
Gaming club. So I got all the students involved, and that's really where I felt I made the biggest connection. Not only the artist groups that I was already meeting with often in Spokane, but then also these other student groups as well. And to this day, I still have 8, 9, maybe 10 of those former students, now adults with their own lives and their own families, still come and volunteer with me every year.
Oh, but that's you making it relational versus transactional. And I think you had mentioned this, that it's like you tried to keep it within the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, because that's I don't want to call it the low-lying fruit, but anytime that we start a business or anytime that we do anything, it's like you got to pick the easier wins right at the beginning. And so you started doing that, but you've stayed with that. You've really stayed with like the local taste, basically. And has that do people reach out to you and ask you like, "Hey, can I come to this?"
Sure.
Or you get okay.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even back to year 1, Margot Kidder somehow got my phone number. Somebody had relayed the message to her that, hey, there's going to be a new comic book show in Spokane, and she had a home in Montana. So she calls me out of left field, so that just blew my mind right there. But to get to my point, that first year, it was all I could do to scrape together enough money to pay for the facility and to pay for 2 flights, one for Margot and one for Matthew, and their hotel for the weekend. It was all I can do, like, to make sure that whatever I was charging for the booths was being able to go back into the show.
Sure.
And do whatever I can to not lose my shirt and not go broke and not be, pulling money out of my own account.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a break even, and that's totally fine. And that's how I always approached it going forward. But then fast forward to now, like I have,
Teams.
16, 17, 18 flights and that many, hotel rooms for the weekend, so we've come a long way.
Well, and it's huge. I mean, it is a big con. When you had mentioned like you were out there, you were setting the tables up, you were putting the posters out. I'm sure you were doing the artwork for all of the media. And a lot of people don't know that when you do start a business, you're doing the work. I mean, it would be nice to be scalable right away and to have this huge team, but it's like you have to do the hard work that's required to get from A to Z. And as that started to go on, was it hard for you to scale and bring on new talent, or was it something easy for you to do to like delegate different positions or different things that you needed to get done? And like, what did that look like for you?
Well, I still do probably about 99% of everything.
Okay.
And that's by choice.
Sure.
That's
'cause
by
you
choice.
enjoy it. You love it.
I'm protective of my baby.
Okay.
I want it done right. But there are people over the years that I have brought in to help me with various degrees of things. So my buddy Matt Brazzi that does graphic design, he's someone that I met through local artist group and doing free events where we would do free sketches for kids on free comic book day and whatnot at different shops. And I got to know him through that. And we really hit it off. And I love his art style. And I was like, I'm thinking about doing a mascot. I think around going into year 8, I was like, we need a mascot.
Okay.
And so I loved his cartoony style. And I was like, what do you think about that? And, and he's like, well, what kind of animals do you like? Well, at the time I had an orange tabby cat. His name was Ed. And I was like, well, I have this pet, I like cats. They're fine. And he's like, all right, I'll get back to you. And he comes back with Sprocket, the comic cat.
Yeah.
There's an orange tabby cat. So it's a fictional version of my former cat.
Did you know right away that was it?
Yes.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, hands down. It was awesome. It was perfect. It was what I envisioned, a superhero cat over a fictional Spokane. But, and so then I've, been able to branch out, that I have a pool of local talent, people that are, great with loving to interview people, loving to talk with people. And so those are people that I lean on when it comes to, being panel moderators.
Sure.
At the show. Because, that's part of a con experience as well, is getting the chance to, to hear your special guest, talk about their life and their experience, but also then people like yourself too, that have these great ambitious ideas and want to, do things to better the community. And so I want to use my show not only to promote local businesses and artists, but also local creators such as yourself to give you a time slot and have the opportunity to present and further get the word out to the community about what you do.
Well, and you present a platform for people, and whether you're an artist or you're a toy collector or you're a panelist or you're an actor, it's like being able to get in front of the fans and or the audience that you may be able to influence in a positive way is heartwarming. Like I still tell people that my speech, Dark Side for Life, at your con was to date my favorite speech I've ever given. And my wife always says, like, Blue, whenever you go off script, it's the most fun for you, right? And it's like, it is. And to be able to be me and to be able to relate to the audience and to connect with them, because I love toys, I love comics, I love Star Wars, and I love the movies. And it's like, it really resonated with me, and I could connect with that, right? And it's like, it's something special to be able to do that. I was terrified of the Q&A. I was really terrified because most of the people in the audience knew way more about Star Wars than I ever would, right? They were the experts.
But those are your people. That's
they
great.
are my people, and I was learning from them too, right? But the experience was phenomenal. And you provide that platform where I can share a message and hopefully give value and an experience to the audience that they're like, that really resonated with me. That I could relate to that, and it makes me feel special. Because if you've never been to a con, it is something special. Like just everybody comes, everybody enjoys it, and you be for that 1 or 2 days who you want to be, and you can kind of escape. Like in the Never-Ending Story, when the boy reads the book, he escapes in the book, and he's part of the book. And it's like when people come to the con, they can escape and they can be who they really want to be, and you embrace that. And for you to provide that environment for people where they feel are heard, seen, valued, and like belong. Like that is phenomenal, Nathan. And I am proud of you to be able to do that. And that's an accomplishment.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And that's probably been one of the most rewarding things about putting on the show. Yeah, it's great that it's grown, that the positive word of mouth and reputation of the show has grown year over year. But the fact that we've been able to create a safe space for people to be seen, to feel comfortable, to be who they want to be, whether it's themselves or dress up as, whoever they admire. That's what's been so flattering. And to see people embrace that show in such a positive way, and you see the groups and you see their flags and you see their matching outfits and the themes, and people will go to the trouble to to be to represent themselves, to be true to themselves, and not feel that they can't do that is amazing.
Yeah, well, and you're providing that. And does it tickle you when people post things like "I'm here" and you had mentioned that it's your baby, like that you brought that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see, as the dust settles every year. It seems like
as you're putting the tables away.
Yeah,
right?
No, I don't have to do that anymore. That's probably been the best thing, is I don't have to do tables anymore. But you'll still see me out there like moving stuff because I want it like, a certain way or whatever. Anyways, but seeing people's social media and their photos and their vlogs and their videos and stuff, like I'll get tagged and stuff all the time. And seeing that trickle days and weeks after the show ends is really cool.
Well, you're not only creating that experience, but you're creating long-lasting memories for these people, because that might have been their first con. That might be their last con. And what you provide is that emotional connection to these people that it's just like you feel welcomed. And that you've done an absolute phenomenal job at that.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. What is it like to bring guests in? Like, we talk about navigating no, right? And so like cold calling or cold emailing, and I reach out to people to try to get a speaking event, and I'm like, hey, are you interested in hiring me as a speaker? What is it like to try to get some of these actors, some of these comic heroes, some of the biggest names in Hollywood, for example? Like, how hard is that?
It was hard, more so in the early days. And, having Margot year one was great. And that was a big, big blessing to have her. But after that, like I said, I really tried to stick with local people because it was affordable. But also there are many talented people in the area as well that should be highlighted. But then, after a few years, I would hear from, people that, whether I knew them or not, people would give me their opinions, even to this day. And that's fine.
I love opinions.
Everyone's got an idea on, how the show should be run.
Sure.
But I would get, emailed or comments like, you should have so-and-so, you should have so-and-so. And I'm like, well, it's easier said than done, to get Mark Hamill or, pick a name out of the sky. It's easier said than done.
I like that. It was the Star Wars reference. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to start, reaching out to some people. And I found it easier to reach out to professional artists and writers and creators in the industry because usually I'm talking to them directly. Anytime I would try to reach out to a, quote unquote celebrity, actor or whatnot, you have to go through their rep.
Got it. Or an agent.
Or
is
an
that
agent,
the same thing?
Same thing.
Okay.
One and the same. A lot of times they have multiple people. They have an agent that represents them for film. They have an appearance, rep. They have a handler. They have an assistant. There's a lot of tiers. So it's getting connected to the right person. But
finding the person that makes the decision.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And other than dealing with creators that I was bringing in, a lot of professional artists from Marvel and DC and still do over the years, they're much easier to work with. You can hit them up on various platforms and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, I'm available, or no, I'm not doing shows, whatever it may be. But then going through a handler, that early experience really rubbed me the wrong way. And there was a handful of years that we didn't have any guests of that nature just because I don't like dealing with someone who's like, this is what they need, and if you can't do it, then, whatever. Yeah. And maybe there was some limitations because of, financially, trying to figure out if can I afford that? Is our show big enough that can justify, bringing in someone like that?
Sure.
And so ultimately the goal was for me is for the show to be sustainable and to grow year over year. And once I knew we were going to the convention center, then that was the time then to transition and start bringing in more guests.
Well, and I think like when you move to the convention center, that's just like, let's call it a title, and it gives you credibility or street cred to be able to pitch to those actors or those the artists, and it just gives you that little bit more of a better resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
To pitch to them. And when you're bringing them in, have you had a point where it's almost worked out? Like you got a hard, like, okay, this person's coming
Numerous times.
And I don't even mean like, oh, Fred got sick, but it's like you were so close with the contract and then they're like, they pulled it because you didn't offer them a Coca-Cola every day or something like that. Like what was some of that experience like?
Yeah, that happens all the time. And like the biggest, fish that got away, so to speak, would be 2020. The people that I already had lined up that we hadn't even announced
for COVID or
because
okay.
we everything got shut down.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get to the point of announcing the guests yet. Because I book people, anywhere 12, 11, 10 months out before the show. You have to. If you
100%.
want the people that you want and they're popular and in demand, you have to book out. And so I had some names lined up that would have been.
Was Blue Stiley one of them?
You were on the list.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And so that's the hardest part. And so coming off of that, like I learned there was 3 different types of people. And, once it was like, okay, we're going to try to resume. We're going to try to have a show, quote unquote, normal, restrictions or not, whatever, And so I learned that there was people that were honorable and willing to uphold their agreement and say, yeah, I'll be there. Just tell me when. And there was other people who were like, well, I need to make up for lost time, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, I need more money. I'm like, gotcha. So then now I can't afford them because they were asking for double of what previously they wanted. And then there was other people that were like, I'm just going to waive whatever financial obligation. And if you bring me out there, that's good enough for me. And I was just like, whoa, that's awesome. So
really,
as the years have gone on, we've been able to bring some of these people back. But then there's been other people that are just like, yeah, that ship has sailed, unfortunately. Yeah.
Whoa. Is there someone on your list that you do want to bring in? Like, is there somebody in the future you're like, that is my goal, right?
Oh, sure. I have people, like I said, Mark Hamill will be great.
And he plugged Star Wars.
Star Wars, of course. Yeah.
You got to get a dark side person like Demetrius again, because he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. And I've talked to various dark side people and it just the stars haven't quite aligned.
Okay.
And sometimes this has nothing to do with financial. It's just what's their availability. Are they willing to travel? Sometimes they some of the guests only want to go to quote unquote big shows. They're going to go to San Diego and Chicago.
What is a big show? What is the numbers of a big show?
In something, like Seattle, you're going to have 80,000 people, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
where it's going to be a slam dunk for them to make their financial obligation and then some.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
It comes
okay.
down to money.
Yeah.
But
yeah. You had to learn. I'm assuming that you couldn't take that personally.
No,
like it's not.
No.
It's not.
I know
up
what
to
my
you.
budget is, and I'm not. And again, talking about being sustainable, I'm not going to bankrupt or mortgage my house because I want to have somebody. And I think that's where some other shows, not just in Spokane but elsewhere in the country, have failed miserably. Is that they didn't stay within their budget. They didn't start small and be realistic. They tried to go San Diego year one, and it's like, sure, you can go San Diego year one, but you're probably gonna lose your shirt. No.
And I think that goes for any industry, right? It's like start smaller and don't shoot for the stars right away with a business model that you have to break the bank and you have to mortgage your house or you have to turn in your retirement. And it's like starting small for those smaller wins is very, very important. And as you have done it, now you're at over 10,000 for your attendance, right?
Yep.
Do you have a projection this year? You're like, I think we can do it like this.
If we get +1,
10,000?
more and one.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. And I used to be driven and motivated by the numbers. And now it's what's the satisfaction? What's the vibe? Are people having a good time? Are people staying till the end? We have to kick people out because they don't want to go. Vendors tell me they had record sales. The guests tell me I'll come back any year. Those are the things that are worth more to me than anything financially, and having continued to build that positive reputation and those vibes. That's the most important thing.
Well, and success means something different for everybody, and that success can change year from year, right? And when you're seeing that and you're making an actual difference, I think that's great that you can see it as a win over here, and this person having the all-time sales record is just as successful as how many ticket sales you have or something like that.
So not to derail your interview.
Too late.
But you talked about getting guests.
Yeah.
And people contacting me. So as the show has grown, a lot of these, celebrities and guests, they do shows throughout the year. They travel all over the country, and some good, some bad. And either way, they get to, sit there at their booth and they meet their neighbors and talk about, who does what. And the conversations that always come up is, what other shows should I be doing? Or where should I go? And my show has come up from, like, guests have told me,
awesome.
They reached out to me, or it was a definite yes, because they had already heard from so-and-so at another show that they came and did my show the previous year and had a blast. And so, again, creating that positive word of mouth, and people are, I have a third of probably my guests every year are people that reach out to me.
I love that. And the reason I do is because my mantra for this year is memorable, valuable, and referable.
I like that.
And in my life, everything that I've done as an entrepreneur or in the service industry, it's like, if I hit all three of those engines or those pistons, I'm successful every single time. And when you can have everybody networking and communicating, you have a memorable thing. You're obviously, the con is memorable. People remember it, and it's valuable. People are getting something out of it, content-wise, or monetarily, or whatever, or they're getting praise or subscribers or followers, and then then it becomes referable. And it sounds like you just hit that, and I think that is success right there.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to hear that. The LA ComicCon, which is just an absolute mecca of people and industry, that there was some guests there talking about Spokane. I'm like, really? They even know that I exist,
But you're easy to do business with too. Yeah. You make it about the artist. You make it about the actor. You make it about, more importantly, about the guests, right? Because it's the experience that you're providing, and you do that, and you go above and beyond because you do the tables. But I'm going to sideline this interview really quick, and I will mention that you do make it easy to do business with. But you go above and beyond. And the reason I know that is because when I was going in to speak, the day before, I got my speaker badge, and you got me a parking pass, and I introduced myself to you. We met in person finally, but I was able to bring my two kids. And what you did was, you and your daughter immediately went over to them and just hung out with them, and you walked around. You took time out of your busy schedule because you're the 99%. But I had questions, and you took the time out, and you went around and you showed me, like, oh, let's do this AV set, and you could use this main stage. You made it very easy for me to do what I needed to do, right? And you made me look good. But then the important thing that really struck home with me is the connection you made with my kids, and the way that your daughter made a connection with my kids. And you allowed them to pick a pin from the pins that you had at the thing. And I have them, and the audience, the viewers can see it, but you let them choose, and they chose a Darth Vader pin and a Boba Fett pin. And it made their day. And they put that on the lanyard, and they had to wear Dad's lanyard, right? They had to walk around with my lanyard. But you made it special, but it wasn't only my kids. Everybody that I talked to was experiencing the same thing. From any of the workers that were there, any of the staff, any of the artists. Demetrius took his time out from speaking and really connecting with the kids. He was so approachable for anybody there. Sergeant Slaughter, you just made an amazing event, and it was because you made it easy for everybody and the experience memorable for everybody.
That's really flattering of you to say and to hear. No, I really genuinely enjoyed getting the opportunity to meet you in person and your family, and that was a great tell about you too, that you're committed, that not only putting forth 100% in your presentation, but also being a good father and coming there with your kids and including them in part of that. And whatever they decide to do as they get older, that's up to them. But for you to share that with them and not just like, oh, you're too young, you don't understand.
Right.
That was really cool. So kudos to you for including your family.
Well, I want them to experience the con, or that kind of like that environment with that culture. And I'm just like you, pop culture is so important to me. It's so much so that it's in every one of my speeches. It's in my book. It's in the podcast. Heck, I have my ad right here, right? And it's like everything to me, it's so important, and it's who I am. Right? It's part of me. And for me to be able to share that with my kids, and then to connect with somebody who has the same feeling and has the same love and desire. I don't have a Mandalorian tattoo or a Rebel one, but it's like that just shows so much. Let's go. You would probably know a better place than me. I don't know. But the experience that you give everybody at Lilac City Comic Con is just phenomenal. And I love it. And I cannot wait to be a part of this year's coming. And what is, you were taking all these little nuggets from the times that you were going, every year you were trying to grow. What were some of the things that were the biggest challenges for you to grow or moving forward even more? Like, what is one of the biggest challenges? Is it you need a bigger place? Is it Spokane's not big enough to provide 80,000 people? Like, what are some of these little challenges, or the biggest challenge that you've received along the way?
The biggest thing I had to just continue to remind myself, and even to this day, is just to be patient and trust the process. And now that I've been doing this long enough to know what needs to happen, I mean, I'll sit down and map out my entire year and know what key things need to happen each month, and then further break it down. But just having patience and trusting the process, trust that what I'm doing is going to work, that staring at my computer screen with various spreadsheets and floor plans will become reality and will be successful. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in that and just realize that, yeah, this is happening, but just remaining positive is always key. Trying not to get too overstressed in various, situations sometimes, when it doesn't necessarily go the way that I would like it to.
Because you are having fun. I'm assuming
that's
that
what I have to remind myself.
Okay.
Yes.
It's enjoyable. I mean, even when I walk around and it's just, I have a smile. I have perma smile on, not like in the horrible movie, but it's like, it's just this great environment that you're around. And even if you're the founder and you're the head of it, it's like, I'm assuming you kind of get that giddy feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was one of the biggest pieces of advice that I gave a friend of mine that I mentored, and he started his own show. Now he's been doing it for 10, 11 years in California. And he was someone that reached out to me, similar to me reaching out to the guys at Emerald City and saying, hey, I haven't been to your show, but I saw your website and what you do and ingrained in the community. Like, how can I do that here? And I was like, those are the right answers, because anyone that has reached out to me and be like, how can I make money?
Yeah.
How can I get rich? I'm like, then this is not why you should be doing it. And so I've been working with him and talking with him and mentoring him. And last summer he was like, you should come down, because I haven't had the opportunity. He's like, you should come down and see my show. And he's like, I want some fresh eyes on my show. And essentially I gave him like a comprehensive report, like a secret shopper, essentially.
Oh, I love that.
And spent the whole day. And one of the really the only critiques I had for him, because I thought everything was really good and he really took everything that I gave to him to heart and ran with it, was you need to be more present. If you are the guy in charge of the show, you need to be on the floor. You need to be pressed in the flesh. You need to be known. Yeah. Because I had to like hunt you down. I didn't know where you were. And a lot of times, you were, front and center. And yeah, when you're a showrunner, you're putting out a lot of fires, so it's easier said than done. But I try to not be hiding. I tried to not be, in the bowels of the office or the convention
100%.
center. I want to be seen just so I can help somebody and try to make their day that much better.
Oh, I love that. You talk about fires. Is there a funny fire story, hopefully not literally, for the con? Like, was there something that happened that you're like, oh, how did that happen? And do you look back and say, how did we make it through that?
Yeah. I think it was 2011 at the community college. Somebody pulled a fire alarm.
Fire alarm?
Somebody pulled it. And at that time, we were only a single day show. Yeah. And so it was like everything was running smooth. The building was full. Everyone's having a great time. And it's like 1:30 in the afternoon. So we still got like, another 3-4 hours to go. and somebody pulls the alarm, and everybody's looking around like, do we need to evacuate? And I was like, yeah, we do. We don't know what the cause is.
Yeah, because you don't know. Like,
Yeah.
even when I'm
Yeah.
in a building, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, do I really have to get out? You should.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was absolutely devastating. And so with asking everybody to leave, probably half of the attendees just left. Left, got in their car and, why should I stay? I've already been here for a couple hours. And a lot of vendors were upset, but I mean, these were things that were out of our control.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was devastating.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. So it's always like, if nobody, nobody does that, then we're good.
Yeah. Oh my, do you have security now, and like there's different protocols, but you're at the convention center. That is a big place. Do you see it, do you see the need to maybe what does growing and scaling look like possibly for you? Is that like taking over another part of the building over on the convention center, or making it a third day? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, well, people ask me that all the time. Oh, when are you going to go to 3 days? Well, technically it's already 3 days for me financially, because we're there all day Friday just with setup between our own personal, booth and merchandise and signage, and then bringing in the vendors. So whether we're open to the public or not, I'm still paying for a third day.
Yeah.
So then it would be a fourth day to have people come in on a Thursday. I think 2 days is just right where it is. But the goal with going to the convention center was there's room to grow. And previously going from Gonzaga to the community colleges, we were always trying to strategically use every nook and cranny while fitting within the fire code and maximizing the space, because the demand was always greater than the space that we had available. So going to the convention center, we went to a 15,000 square foot space, to a 28,000 square foot space, to a 45,000 square foot space. Now we're using 85,000 square feet space and pretty much occupy 3/4 of the entire upstairs. So yes, there is still room to grow, but the fine line is every time I've continued to add more booths, which I have year over year, the more that impacts the sales of
Other vendors.
100%. So I'm saturating my own market. So I have to find a number and be comfortable with that and stick with that. Even though, yes, I could add another 100 booths if I wanted to, but do I need to?
Sure.
Yeah.
What is the most popular thing at Lilac City Comic Con? Is it like a cosplay judging? Is it a specific panel? Is it like, what has been the most popular thing that maybe you didn't think was going to be as popular?
Cosplay, 100%.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, when we started out year one, we had one cosplayer. You imagine that? You imagine that going to a show and there's only one person dressed up?
No, but how popular would you be?
Right.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a picture with me.
Yeah. It was a stormtrooper, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. My buddy Chris.
TK unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he a member of the 501st?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so ironically, then fast forward, he is for now 10 years, has been the MC of the cosplay contest for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That is a cool deep dive into that.
Yeah.
That is excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Does he do it in a stormtrooper outfit?
No, but he usually dresses up as something else. But yeah, occasionally you would see, someone with a stormtrooper or a Jedi robe, a Star Trek uniform. You would see a little bit of that here or there, but then a Ghostbusters, whatnot. But then it just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I think, comics had a big part of it. The Marvel movies had a big influence on it, but it just seemed to get bigger and bigger and bigger until we knew right away. I think it was year 2 that we had to do the costume contest, but now we have to put a cap on how many people can enter. Otherwise we're going to be there all night. And even at that point, we're capping it off at like around 100 people. Yeah. We could easily do even more than that. But, and Chris does an outstanding job with trying to hustle and get everybody through. And now we switched to an online registration system so people can submit their information to just try to further streamline it. And that opens up March 1st. And I know people are hungry for that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, it's really taken off leaps and bounds. And I never would have crossed my mind that many people would care, let alone put forth the effort. And people do. People will take all year to put together their costume because maybe my show is the only show they can get to, whether it's in their region or they can afford it. And so they'll show up and they've got something amazing.
I love that. I want to go back really quick. And that is that when you decided to start Lilac City Comic Con, were you working? So you had a full-time job and this was a hobby. Yeah. Was there a point that this became the full-time job?
Yeah,
And was it
yeah.
scary?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was, as the show continued to grow year over year. Yeah, I worked full time at Gonzaga
Okay.
and then did this on the side. And the numbers, the size of the venue, the vendors, the waiting list, everything continued to trend up. And we have it even on our website. It's even remarkable. I'm so glad I've kept track of it. Over the years.
No, I've seen it, and it's
yeah.
like the year one, 313. It
Yeah.
just keeps on going up. Okay.
And so when we got to the point where it's like, man, it would be really cool if I could do this full time, because really I'm maybe doing it part time.
Mhm.
But I was like, well, it needs to, how can I, afford to do all that? I just want to make sure that I'm putting forth the best show, possible, and I'm not losing my shirt there. But then I remember like one year, I think I made like $300 profit after first 4 years or something like that, breaking even.
Mhm.
And I made like $300. I was like, whoa, it's just who knew? Like, what a
Yeah.
bonus.
Yeah.
It was like, I got a holiday
Yeah.
bonus. So
Yeah, yeah.
$300. That blew my mind. And so I'm like, well, it'd be nice if I make something, but if I
Mhm.
don't, oh well. And it was around 2018, we had a really big jump in our attendance. And I was like, interesting. I wonder if we continue to go forward, will it be that way? And in 2019, we continued to go up again at the convention center. I was like, wow, if I have another show like this, I think I'm gonna give notice. Well, then 2020 happened,
And COVID,
and
right?
it was like the great reset.
Sure.
So are we even gonna be able to do shows again? I lost my, not only doing shows, but I lost my regular job too, like a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so it just became survival.
Yeah.
And so starting the show over again was like starting it from scratch. And then like our attendance like got cut in half, and I'm like, well, at least we got to do it.
Yeah.
And, just kind of put our toes in the water and we didn't drown.
Mhm.
And then the following year, I think it was 2022, like our numbers spiked again. And so it's like, okay, I think we're back.
I
need to make sure. And then 2023, it was like, we took another leap, and I'm like, okay, I'm putting in my notice.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's taking that leap of faith, and you did it, but that was scary for you. If you were to tell and see your past self, what would be the one thing that you would want your past self to know to become who you are today? What is the one thing that you would tell our audience to take with them?
Don't sweat the small stuff. Sometimes I might get over, and I think I talked about it earlier too, not stressing or having too much anxiety over things that are out of your control. There's a vision of how I want things done, and sometimes that doesn't always come to fruition, but having that patience and perseverance and positivity is key. And just take note of it and try to do better next time.
Well, you're doing good now, and you are making a difference. If people want to find out more about you and about Lilac City Comic Con, which is June 7th and 8th of this year coming up, how can they find out more about you?
So I have a website, lilaccitycon.com. We have social media, Instagram and Facebook is primarily where we occupy the social webs, and we encourage people to follow those. We're posting, this is a perfect time to start following us as we get closer to June, because we're posting stuff weekly, and we'll start posting stuff even more frequently between guests, between cosplay contests, between things that we ask people to collect canned food and non-perishables for helping out
I love
our
that.
place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things coming up, giveaways, promotions, some exclusive merchandise. Now's the perfect time to follow us.
Well, and for our viewers, I'm holding up your poster for the Lilac City Comic Con, but for our listeners, obviously check out the website and look at that. And one of my favorite things about following you and subscribing to the con is that you give out these little shout outs like, this is a guest who's coming. This is another guest who has signed up. And I think that's really cool, because that creates that buzz where I'm like, oh, now it's even more reason to go both days versus just one. And so do you continuously add to that list? Like, is there going to be more people coming as the time comes for June?
Yeah, we still have probably another 4 or 5 guests that we haven't announced yet. And just part of it, just spreading it out, spreading the wealth, and making sure everyone gets their due spotlight, and not just do a big, drink from the fire hose. Here's everybody in one shot, and hope somebody doesn't get lost.
Did you totally refer UHF the movie?
I did, yeah.
You're a lucky little boy.
just
You
reach
get a
into that
drink
cereal
from
box,
the fire hose.
pull out that guy on the string and start spinning around. Yeah.
I love it. You have to see that movie if you haven't.
Red Snapper. Yep.
Red Snapper from the box. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love our conversation, Nathan. I love what you're doing, and I cannot wait to be a part of this in June. And I just wish you the best of luck. And thank you for being my friend, man.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you.
So I'm wishing you luck, and thanks for coming on today, brother.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.